All right, we got Levi. Is that Billy or Danielle under the Council on Domestic Relations?
It is Billy.
Hey, Billy, how you doing today, man?
All right.
Awesome. Glad to see you as always, man. All right, we got Kelly J in here, so we'll get streaming with America Mission. Ricky, America Mission streams us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to like 5 different platforms. It's been such an awesome collaboration. They get us out on their own Twitter, plus Rumble and Kick and Facebook. It's a one-stop shop for really boosting the signal on this movement work. It's been so cool.
They're so amazing. Oh, we've got Ed back in the house today too. All right.
Hey, Ed, what's happening, buddy? All right, we'll get America Mission up here on stage. So you, Kelly J.
That be me. Here I am.
Hey, how you feeling?
I'm better. I'm getting
Awesome.
back. Yeah, trying to get the healthy stuff in me, you know.
It's so hard. And I'll tell you, I'm kind of a mess right now. I ended a 5-day water fast yesterday. And I've only had beef broth so far. But like bone broth so far. I'm gonna have some ground beef today. But I have been torturing myself with food videos for the last like 4 days.
Are you a masochist or what?
No, I just,
That's what
I've been on.
said. He's like, I'm just looking at all these pictures of food. I'm like,
For
what
hours on
I
end. For hours on end. It's crazy. It's totally crazy. But look, I've been on carnivore for like 6 weeks trying to heal my gut. But the thing is, a lot of people go on carnivore to lose weight. I don't need to lose weight. I was already a little underweight. I'm pretty sure because of like leaky gut and stuff, I'm not processing nutrients properly. So it's always been a struggle for me to put on weight. But I have to deal with my intestinal permeability, my dysbiosis, even just to like get to the point where I can process things properly. And so I've already just been exhausted because I'm pretty much only eating ground beef, a little bit of beef liver, some ghee, some bone broth. And it's so boring and it's so nutrient dense that I just can't bring myself to eat enough. So I was already just dying to expand my diet. But we'll see. I'm actually really excited. I've got a call tomorrow morning with can you guys hear me? Christina's saying I can't hear you.
I can hear you.
Yep. Okay, sweet. Christina, if someone wants to tell Christina if she needs to drop down and come back up, we'll get her taken care of. I've got a call with Cooking with Chris tomorrow. I don't know if you guys know that account, but he's great. He's constantly posting food tips and healthy eating tips. And apparently he works with people one-on-one to fix their health and diet issues. I've been wanting to link up with this guy for months. And so I've got a call with him tomorrow to figure stuff out. My challenge, of course, is that I've been working unpaid for the last 2.5 months. I don't even know how I'm covering my rent and car payment. So figuring out how to do the things that are necessary to get healthy is going to be a big challenge, but I have to do it. I just have to figure it out. So that's a big next step for me. But I'm stoked. We got a bunch of people in here now, so we can totally get going. We'll get Kristina back in here in a second. But let's do it. Welcome everybody to the Midday MAHA. Thank you so much for joining us on a Wednesday. This is our demilitarized zone for discourse. Today I'm really excited to have Ricky Varandas with us. He does a podcast called The Ripple Effect. He's way down the rabbit hole. He's been covering a lot of topics that really align with the MAHA movement, everything from vaccines to mental health to just all across the board. And I'm excited to just have like a really nice, all over the place conversation. And I really encourage folks today to grab a mic, get on stage, get involved. Let's go wherever the conversation takes us. It should be really good. I'm also really just honored and blessed to have America Mission in the house, helping us stream out to a bunch of platforms so that we can get more ears and eyes on these conversations. Billy with the Council on Domestic Relations here, doing just incredible work stitching together the initiatives and the organizations and the awareness of what's happening in the MAHA movement. We've got Ranch Mama Shannon in here from the Beef Initiative, who's helping us all source high quality, like family owned rancher beef and meats. And they do policy work and nonprofit work as well. They're wonderful. Stoked to have Levi in here. Dude, I'm so glad you've been showing up lately. Levi is the chair of the We the People Party. And it is an independent third party in the United States, not interested in labels, not interested in partisanship, not interested in the games. They're just trying to get people in office to represent other people effectively. And so I'm stoked that you've been joining us, man, and I'm really excited for the kind of work we're going to be able to do together going forward. But yeah, so we've got Ricky. We're going to get into Ricky here in just a few moments. But first, as always, we really love to get the Council on Domestic Relations to sort of update us on what's happening in the MAHA movement. And in fact, Ricky, since you've been doing so much research and getting so many experts to talk to you on your podcast, as Council on Domestic Relations tells us what's going on, maybe just one by one we can have a chat about it instead of it being like a quick burn update and then moving on.
Real quick, I know I fooled you all. I said I was logged in as counsel, but I actually logged out and logged into myself because I think Danielle was logged in, and there's a kind of weird thing with X where you could both be logged in the same account. I think it throws you back off. It does some weird stuff. So I logged out. I logged in as myself, and Danielle's over there. We were actually at the press event yesterday at HHS. I don't know if Danielle, you wanted to give, she's got much more of a lay of the land here with this stuff and kind of knew everybody in the room. It was kind of impressive. Danielle, are you there?
I'm here.
Yeah. So
Coder was at the press conference yesterday. We had a pretty good time. Really full room, kind of packed to the gills. No negative reports at all. The government did a good job carrying on this event. So the big statement that I think everybody probably knows about at this point is that Bobby and FDA Commissioner Marty Makary came out and announced they're banning 8 different food dyes. And so there's a little bit of a timeline that has to work against. They're going to start, I believe, with something called citrus red number 2, which I swear I've never seen in anything, but apparently it's important, and orange B. And those are going to be the 2 they tackle first. And then the other 6 are FD&C green number 3, red number 40, yellow number 5, yellow number 6, and blue number 1 and 2. So on top of this, all culminates on top of red 3 that we know is already starting to be teased out thanks to the Biden administration. So I think one of the things that I wish they would have talked about in the press conference and they didn't get to, but I've caught in a lot of the press, is that there are other dyes out there. And I don't know if anybody on here knows more about this than I do. They might, but I've got like beet powder in my cabinet. Like I've got a few. I knew about butterfly pea flower extract. That stuff's really cool, and you can put it in like lemonade, and it turns it like wild colors.
Even turmeric is great, right? For like orange and yellow.
Yeah, turmeric. Yeah. There's something called, I'm gonna maybe butcher this, but I was reading about it this morning. Galderia extract. Have you ever heard of that, Damo?
Nope, sure haven't.
Yeah, so it's like if you look it up, it's really, really pretty color, but it's from some kind of algae. But like a lot of I'm like impressed digging into this, how many natural dyes already exist, because I don't know, in my head, I thought there were like 4 of them. There's a ton. So that's really cool. But I think one of the things that impressed me the most at the press conference was just At one point, I don't recall who it was, but a certain journalist asked about, clarification of like, is this something you guys are forcing onto food manufacturers, or is this something that they're, happy to work with you on? And he reiterated that like they want this, right? And I think they needed the cover of the government kind of pushing this along to be able to do it.
Okay, wait. Quick question here.
Yeah.
The food companies want it.
Hold on,
Yeah.
I'll jump in there. So there's two things. One of the most impressive things is when Marty was speaking, he actually held up a little juice of watermelon juice and said, instead of that red dye, you can use some watermelon to get, a similar color. The journalist that asked that was from the New York Times. And I think the long run around here, if you listen to what Bobby was saying and what Marty was saying, is that currently the way things are going, if you could imagine like making cars that are a certain way for California and then a different way for North Carolina, and then maybe Texas wants something different as far as the way cars are manufactured or child car seats and all that. It gets annoying when you have to make 3 different versions of a car. And I think that's what they were saying. They were saying if 25 of these states say they're okay with the red dye or they're not going to do this, and then another 15 states say you have any of this stuff, and then another 20 states or 10 states, whatever, says something in the middle, and they don't want to have to find that middle ground of where the cost benefit analysis is. So I don't think they necessarily came at it like they want to do this. I think because they could have done it.
They're just grateful that there's a federal level regulation instead of having to deal with a patchwork.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah. So this helps them.
Yeah, and I've heard that when California, for instance, institutes regulations on something that are more stringent than the federal government, they often just change their entire product around it because it's such a large economy. So this is like, screw it. If we're going to have to do it, let's do it. But at least it's at the federal level. Yeah, of course, they will try to spin this and try to get the most positive PR they can out of it. But the fact is, they had to be forced to do this. And most of these companies are already selling in European and Canadian markets without this crap. So, I mean, my sense, and I'm a pretty peaceful and like peace loving and whatever dude, I offer no quarter to these companies. If they had to be dragged kicking and screaming to provide a better product through regulation, they didn't want to actually provide a better product. They're just doing it because they have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm really like, I'm glad that they have to do it, but I'm not going to kiss their ass for it.
Oh yeah. No. And I'm not implying that, but I just, I don't think it's going to probably quite as easy to do the same thing with drugs, because a lot of drugs have dyes, and so far I think I'm pretty certain we're only targeting drugs so far with the Biden order that's on red.
Yeah, didn't Bobby say that that's like their next thing?
Yes.
Now they're going for drugs.
Complexities in that.
Yeah, and this is just the dyes, right? This doesn't touch on preservatives. It doesn't touch on flavorings. It has nothing to do with like brominated oils or anything like that.
Right. And, seed oils. There's a few other things they have in the pipeline with food that I think that are going to happen here in the next few months.
You think they are going to happen?
Yeah.
And it's frustrating
from
that it takes, and it's frustrating that it's like end of 2026. But not that frustrating. Especially for anyone who's conscious enough to already be avoiding these products. But it's just, I want to be able to pick up just about anything on the shelf. And even if it's processed, know that it's sort of like minimally processed, because they weren't allowed to use a bunch of this crap in it.
Exactly. And they highlighted some good things yesterday, like talking about, your kid's Easter basket or trick-or-treating. Like even a lot of families in this vein who day to day avoid this kind of stuff. Those things are a pain. Or you take them to soccer practice, and somebody's family hands out, I don't know, Gatorade or something afterward. That's
right, totally. Or even if they just like made cupcakes,
never,
but what did they make it with?
Right. They said that too. They were like, you're not going to have to worry about what kind of frosting is on the birthday cake at your kid's friend's party anymore. Yep. Like that's really where I think this comes in, and it starts making.
It's going to make a difference. And God, I just pray they move on to the rest of the critical product categories or ingredient categories. But it does seem like that's the track we're on. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's great progress. There's always going to be controversy It seems like no matter what happens, if one side does it, the other side's going to bitch about it. So this is like unequivocally positive, but the left's going to complain, or someone's going to try to say, this is all you guys can do. And it's like, dude, we're just getting started.
I know.
We're just getting started.
We're kind of getting that clap back in our own space right now, right?
Which
People
is crazy. It's like, yeah,
I don't
we're
care
starting.
about food dye.
Well, great. Then stay tuned.
I know.
You know?
They're like, I want my thing right now. I want the thing I care about.
It's like it was one of the lowest hanging fruits.
Exactly.
It really was. So we should be great. Like, good. It didn't take 6 months to do this, which means,
right.
We'll get to the next thing
have all this data. So like they can already go ahead and make the unilateral.
Right. And that's a really great
for years.
Yeah, that's a really great point.
We have to still manipulate some of the other data and get it in the order it needs to be in to paint the right picture for the bigger things coming down the road.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I would phrase it as manipulate the data. I hope we're not manipulating the data,
no,
but
you know what I mean.
But we need to do the gold star science. We need to like figure out what that data says and then present it properly. Yeah.
I think the most interesting thing about this space is the food manufacturers is like I think a lot of us here are saying, the only dyes in my food I have in my house are probably some Cheetos, which, we have some spoil foods. We have some food, we can't be 100%. So I got 3 kids. There's a couple things in our house, but other than that, we don't have any of the seed oils. We have peanut oil and we have tallow. And so I think what's interesting here is a lot of the people that already don't want this are already not using it. And we've backed up on it. So there is maybe a potential scenario where there's a growth level for these manufacturers. Maybe more people will buy tricks.
That's a really good point.
Got good dye in it. Like
that's
I might
really good point.
If it's made correctly, maybe not me, because it's still got the GMOs, corn, soy, and wheat. And that's part of the issue here is that it could attract more people to come back in, but it's all the rest of the ingredients are bad. You don't need a cereal with like 64.
Well, that's why I'm waiting for all these other categories, right? The seed oils, the preservatives, the GMOs, the pesticides. I'm really waiting for all that. But what, like the point you made that a lot of the people who are trying to avoid this stuff are already avoiding this stuff. The angle on that I look at is this is legitimate government protection of people who aren't actually like actively thinking about this stuff, who are just living busy lives trying to keep their head above water, and they don't have the bandwidth for this. They don't know to prioritize it. And not to call my girlfriend out, but she eats like shit. She eats really bad. And even she has said, I hope Bobby is successful at getting a lot of this crap out of the food, because I don't know what to do. And I can't get myself, like not in this moment, at least in the headspace, to go so far out of my way to find healthy food. And she lives in Myrtle Beach. I've spent weeks down there with her. It is a healthy food desert. It's hard to find good stuff. You have to go way out of your way. And even then the options are super limited. So the more we can do on this stuff, the better the options are going to be for these folks and the healthier they're going to be, even if they don't change their habits at all. So I just think it's really positive. Anyway, it's a huge update. I'm super stoked on it. Ed, go ahead and pop in a comment, and then if there's anything else worth going over with council, let's do that, and then let's get Ricky in here.
Well, it's good that it isn't a continual color race. Can I create a color that's more fluorescent, more colorful, deeper color, all about color? I mean, so many things are bleached, and that's another issue. Why
let's get the titanium dioxide out.
Right. Unfortunately, they haven't gone to neon green bread or neon, I mean, how I kept worrying, where is this going to end up?
I do miss the purple ketchup, not going to lie.
Right. No, they actually had Barbie ketchup.
Yeah.
They tried. I tried to find. In fact, I was in a supermarket. I couldn't find it locally. They came out with it. Heinz came out with it this last fall, I think.
It's like bright pink or something.
Yes, bright pink. And there was a guy stocking shelves, and I was with a young person. Unfortunately, it wasn't a young girl. That would have been more interesting. But I said, "When are you going to get the Barbie ketchup?" And he looked at me and he went, the what? And I'm like, you don't know the Barbie ketchup.
That's great. It's great that he didn't know. I'm glad that's obscure.
I know.
I was actually excited to see. I don't know how many people in here know Olipop. It's like a healthy soda. It doesn't have a ton of sugar, and instead it has this really cool mix of plant-based prebiotics. But it's a healthy soda. They've got like 20 different flavors, and they're great. And they have a Barbie flavor, and it's like a peaches and cream sort of a soda. But it's actually branded, and I guess it's a collaboration with Mattel or something. It's a Barbie. And I was like, oh, cool. A healthy brand doing like a big name brand collab partnership. That's the kind of direction I'd like to see. Right? Like let's see some big action movie doing a brand collab with the Beef Initiative. Let's go. Yeah, but anyway, Council, is there anything else big in the MAHA space right now that we should talk about?
I don't think so, but we might have some things to talk about on Monday, but I don't think there's too many big things stirring right now. Well, just trying to maintain some peace with all of the division inside the movement.
Yep, that's okay. It's a marathon, not a sprint, right? Even though we are sprinting, because a lot of these things we need to get done as quick as we can. But thank you so much as always, and hang out, enjoy it. Let's have a great conversation. Let's turn to Ricky. Ricky, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm super stoked you can be with us. Ricky is the host of the Ripple Effect podcast. And Ricky, I kind of want to give you a chance to sort of introduce yourself to our community. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. This is going to be a fun discussion. It's already been fun just being a spectator and listening. But yeah, thanks for having me. This is topics that I've been very dear and near to my heart for a long time. Before COVID, there was, there wasn't quite a big, I guess, audience for people who are questioning things like pharma or food or dietary recommendations or whatnot. But it's always been something that I've been passionate about because I've always been into sports and kind of use sports and going to the gym and working out as kind of my mental and physical therapy to keeping me optimal, emotionally and mentally. Which, that's something else we could kind of get into too, just like all the benefits of exercise and homeopathic methods of treating and curing and helping so many of our issues, health issues and mental issues. But yeah, it's always been something that I've been really intrigued with. And, early on, I was born in Portugal and came to America. I used to have to go translate for my parents when they would go to the doctor. And I would always end up butting heads with the doctor because, they would tell my dad that he had super high cholesterol and, they would give me the number and I would think it's his credit score. It was so high. And year after year, they would tell me that he's going to die and have a heart attack. And I'm just like, I'm starting to get skeptical about this, because I'm like, you got him on a statin that I seem to be more concerned about than his actual cholesterol levels. And so, and then little by little, I just kind of, all these little things would happen in my life that kind of made me second guess things. And then in the vitamin and nutrition world, it would be natural remedies and things that would work that came from, plant extracts and whatnot that would be demonized. And I would eventually like kind of little by little plant that seed of like, okay, what's going on here? And then when I got into like documentaries and research and kind of unraveling how the world really works, one part of this whole journey that kind of was neglected was like just kind of all the corruption in food and nutrition and health and whatnot. And I think a lot of people, that were in the alternative media community like myself were really intrigued with like geopolitical stuff and wars and that type of stuff. But I'm like, hey, domestically, we have some domestic terrorism and it's our FDA and CDC and it's all these things that are happening at home. And you can't go out and protest if you're not healthy. You can't go out and start a podcast or a blog or a YouTube channel if you don't feel good. So it was always one of those topics that I'm like, this is information that can change people's lives right now. Somebody who paid attention to the food pyramid and did all the things the government told them to do now have arthritis or they're diabetic or they have all these health issues and they were doing what they thought was right and what they were recommended to do. And I'm like, these are the things, these are the topics and information that can change lives right now. Somebody can listen to a podcast or listen to, X space and get some information that can, change their well-being right, today, or at least start the process of it. And a lot of times when people talk about health and nutrition and just dietary methods of curing, preventing, and treating disease, people kind of laugh at it, because eating, I heard somebody talk about Cheetos, like, yeah, eating those one bag of Cheetos isn't going to kill you, and maybe eating 2 bags, maybe 3 bags. But I think you don't wake up and become unhealthy. It's little gradual steps into unhealthiness. So it's like you start healthy, and then little by little, poor life decisions will lead you in that direction. And then one day you wake up and you have these health issues, and people, around that person will say, "Hey, he seemed like a healthy person. What happened to him? He seemed fine yesterday." And it's, yeah, because it doesn't happen overnight. It's small, little, poor life decisions that lead to that. And, like you guys were talking about the chemicals in our food. I buy a lot. There's a lot of little Portuguese butcher shops and stores nearby, and I'll go buy cereal, for example, and use the Yuka app, which I'm not a huge fan of its recommendations in regards to like sodium recommendations and cholesterol and fats, because I think the sugar industry has kind of helped demonize some of those essential things. But when you scan it and you see the preservatives in like Portuguese cereal that comes from Portugal and has dealing with their regulations, and then you look at like the cereal in America and you see the preservatives, and you're like, wow, this is like night and day. And that's how it is with most of our things. I mean, obviously you guys know, and some people listening, I'm sure, are aware of this story, and RFK talking about how the same cereal just in Canada, you don't even have to go to Europe, in Canada, will be drastically less healthy for you because of all the restrictions they have with their foods. The American stuff is much more unhealthy for you, and in Canada it's healthier, and it's just right over the border. But because they can get away with putting stuff in our food, they will. And there's a lot of people looking at graphs and ones and zeros and trying to figure out how to cut costs, and they don't really think about the long-term effects on kids and people just in general, on how it's going to have a negative effect on people. And so I mean, these are really important topics. So it's always been something I've been really concerned about. I heard somebody talking about the carnivore diet. I've had Dr. Sean Baker on. I've had Dr. Dominic D'Agostino on years ago before he was on the Rogan podcast. Rob Wolf, who came up with big proponent for the paleo diet, and also created Element Electrolytes, which I think is another essential thing that people have been kind of missing in their diet. And Dr. Thomas Seyfried, who wrote Cancer as a Metabolic Disease, 150 peer-reviewed studies. Nobody's interested in it because it's a dietary method that he's highlighting that can help prevent, cure, or treat cancer. And so it just endless amounts of information is out there, but most of it's been suppressed. And early on when I started my podcast, and I'll make this the last story because I started a podcast because I don't know when to stop talking at times. But early on when I started my podcast in 2013, I was really excited to have a doctor called Dr. Brzezinski. Some of you guys might know who he is. There's a famous documentary called Brzezinski by Eric Merola, and they both were coming on my show to talk about that documentary. And I remember in the documentary, they talked about just how strong Big Pharma is, and how they will go, just over and beyond to demonize doctors that are using alternative treatments or natural remedies. And so I go to post, my excitement about Dr. Brzezinski coming on my podcast, and immediately I get these fake accounts and bots saying he's pseudoscience, he's a murderer, and he's this, he's that. And I'm just like, wow. I'm like, I just started my podcast. I have no platform, and they're even trying to discredit him even on the little interviews that he's doing at the time. And so it kind of put in perspective how strong Big Pharma was, how much influence they had, and how dangerous they were. Because when you can control the information and you start poisoning the well and putting out this negative information, people are going to start second guessing these alternative treatments. And then even when I had my kids, my wife and I had our kids, and we decided to unvaccinate them. The pediatrician would constantly make my wife feel guilty, and anytime I wasn't there, and then say that we're murder, we're going to kill them, and all this stuff. And it's like this is the pressure that people have to try to look at alternative perspectives on things. And I don't even really like calling it alternative, because the truth is, like, a lot of the way that we're trying to live comes from our ancestors. I mean, people used to eat high fat meat. You know, you kill an animal, we're hunter gatherers, we're gonna eat that stuff. You know, food wasn't guaranteed. You didn't have access to a bunch of fake food. And but so I think living and learning from our ancestors is really important, and that's kind of what we're trying to get back to: less chemicals in our food. And there's a lot of, I know you guys talked about some infighting with the MAHA movement in the dietary world. It's been like that too. You have the paleo people, the vegan people, the carnivore people, and I always try to simplify it. And I'll end it with this little tip. I'm just like, eat things you can pick, things you can grow, things you can kill. If you keep it that simple, then whatever ratio of meats or proteins or whatever you're eating, chances are you're going to be healthier than the average American. So, but yeah, so, and then I also host another show called The Union of the Unwanted, which is similar to kind of this in regards to a roundtable discussion. I host that with Sam Tripoli from Tinfoil Hat Podcast, Charlie Robinson from Macroaggressions, and Midnight Mike. But yeah, so, you know, I'm more than happy to expand on any of these other topics, and, or, you know, if anybody wants to add to anything I said.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I really appreciate it. And hey, everybody, reshare the space real quick, because I would just love for more people to be able to hear this. Clearly, Ricky is a wealth of information. I love your background, Ricky, your breadth of knowledge, your energy, and what's clearly your dedication to exploring these things and sharing good information. It's such a breath of fresh air. It's exactly the kind of thing that I'm always looking for, especially as we expand this community and get into like the work of grassroots organizing, because a lot of that work has to happen from just thousands of us coming together around these topics and finding ourselves in community together. And then you need at least a handful of really knowledgeable people with a lot of energy and a positive attitude that are just able, not just willing, but like able to talk and talk and talk. And I say that as a compliment about this stuff, because we recognize how important it is, and are able to do so effectively. And you've clearly got a great voice for this, man. So I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you being here. And by the way, this is, correct me if I'm wrong, Ricky, this is your first Twitter space, your first X space?
Yes, I probably was asking some really dumb questions while trying to figure out.
Not at all. Not at all. They were exactly the most normal questions to ask when being like, okay, wait, how do I do this? But welcome. These are actually awesome ways of sort of getting your face and your voice out there more, especially if you already have a bit of a reputation, because it'll be a lot easier for you to sort of make inroads with other space hosts that would be happy to bring you up and bring you into conversation. And one of the best ways to grow your X following too. I've probably grown mine like 25% just in the like 2 months or so. That not even 2 months, like month and a half that we've been doing these spaces. So they're great, and I'm glad. I'm pretty excited that we were able to pop your cherry on that. It's really cool to have you. You touched on so many topics that are like especially relevant for me. Like you talked about statins. I've been trying so hard to figure out my gut issues for like 10 or 15 years now. And at one point, I was just on a really outlier diet, and I wasn't carnivore, but I was eating a ton of meat, and I'm eating a ton of meat now, of course, but I was eating a ton of meat and a bunch of butter and a bunch of like bacon, and it was a lot, right? And then I went and got a physical, my annual checkup, and they did a blood panel, and my doctor almost jumped out of his seat, like, your cholesterol level is really dangerous. And it was such an anomaly to him that he assumed it was genetic and tried to get me immediately to go on statins. And I knew how much of an outlier my diet was, that I just said, look, let me try changing my diet. Let me just try. Right? Give me a month or two. I'll change my diet. Let's see what happens. And he was hesitant at first, but then he's like, you know what? It's fine. Statins take like years to even sort of get up to speed on what they claim to provide benefit for anyway. So sure, go ahead. We'll check back in a couple months. I dropped the butter. I dropped the bacon. I started cooking with more olive oil instead. Cholesterol levels dropped right back into a normal range, like right away. And so I was like, man, they are so fast to try to put people on these drugs that they want to put you on these drugs for the rest of your life, a lot of which have really dangerous side effects, and they're never getting to the root causes of these issues, rarely, I should say, getting to the root causes of these issues, and it's so scary. But yeah, man, no, I mean, just so many topics you're touching on here. I wonder, so Billy, jump in here. I wonder where people want to go with this, because we can really take this anywhere we want.
Well, can I just mention, there's a great researcher. I ran into her work some years ago. Her name's Dr. I just actually shared it in a text with you. But Mariana Damasi, she's I don't know how to pronounce her name. I'm from another country, so I'm bad with names. But she's done some amazing work. I don't know if there's a way of sharing it or whatnot, but she's there's a YouTube video you can find, my experience exposing exposing the statin controversy. She's been suppressed. And she was just a journalist from Australia that looked into it. She was trying to figure out, like, how do you come up with these guidelines, like these numbers? And I mean, if we just think logically, for example, like if we say, hey, at this number, this is when we start suggesting statins to patients, like, why wouldn't they put that number lower than it has to be, even based on their crappy research that they have? It would make them tons of money. And if they lower that slightly, or they tell doctors to start suggesting it slightly earlier, I mean, that's huge gains for these public companies and these criminal companies, because obviously, as you guys know, like, they've been fined more than anybody. And so it's like that number is complete horse crap. I mean, since so I just turned 40. Since I was a teenager and going to the doctors with my father, his doctor said that he had the highest cholesterol of all his patients. Like I said, it was as high, it sounded so high that it sounded like his credit score. And I'm just like, okay, like I would argue with my dad on the way home, saying like, hey, he's saying you're going to have a heart attack. You're going to die. Like, you need to change your lifestyle. And he's like old school Portuguese. Like he eats things he can grow and kill or whatever, like I mentioned. But he's also old school, where he's not going to change his ways. And so he wouldn't. And I would always be afraid. And then I'd start finding out, like, well, he does drink wine with dinner every night. And, Lipitor is bad for your liver. It's toxic and whatnot. So I'd bring that up, and they'll be like, oh, the heart attack will kill him before his liver does. And I'm like, well, that's not reassuring. I don't feel better after you said that. And so it's like like so many of these things, and it's like all pharmaceutical research. Like it's funded, and the research is brought to the FDA and the doctors by the pharmaceutical companies. So you don't have any incentive, and you have no laws or regulations that force you to have to show you that any of this research is flawed, that it's any research that might show that the drug is dangerous. They can hide that away. They don't have to show any of it. They're not liable to have to show any of that. So like the cholesterol thing, and dietary cholesterol is important, and like sodium's the same thing. Sodium's a central mineral. You need it. And for a long time, it was like, oh, my blood pressure, or I need to stay off the sodium. I need to, all this stuff. Fats were the same thing. There's a great documentary called Sugar Coated. And I've had Dr. Robert Lustig on the show before. He's done a bunch of really good work on the sugar industry. I don't agree with him in regards to vaccines, but I definitely agree with him in regards to the corruption in the food industry. And it's like all these little things that we've been told that like could lead to, I mean, how many people are at home right now? Their mood sucks. Maybe lack of gut health. You talked about gut health. Another, if you want to do keto or carnivore or any of those things, and you're looking for a good kombucha that's not full of sugar, there's a company out of Australia, all organic, called Remedy. They just start selling it in like Walgreens and certain stores in the US. I typically order it, but it's all organic, no sugar, sweetened with the stevia leaf, and all organic kombucha, and it's delicious. It's good for you. You'll see that it changes your mood, like it almost, because that gut feeling, and again, going back to learning from our ancestors, that saying of like, I have a gut feeling, the gut and the mind is connected, and it does affect your mood. It does affect your energy. It's more than just, everything in our stomach we think is like digestive related. We don't think that it affects anything else, but it does. And so kombucha, probiotics, prebiotics, I live in the East Coast of Massachusetts. People get Lyme disease. They just give them tons of antibiotics, but they never tell them to go on probiotics or prebiotics, postbiotics, and really help fix the problems that the antibiotics might cause. So it's like, yeah, I mean, I've been ranting for so long, I forgot where I even started. But my point is, like, all these things are really important, and cholesterol has been one of the biggest myths. It's been, these statins are huge. I mean, it's one of the most prescribed things are these statins, and they make tons of money, and they're public companies, and they've been known to.
And they're heavily subsidized too, right?
Yeah. So it's like, I would always tell people, I'm like, listen, like, how do you feel? Because back in the day, you used to go to the doctor, and they used to ask you, are you on any prescription drugs? Today, you go to the doctor, they ask you how many prescription drugs you're on. Like, that's a problem. And when people talk about, oh, we need to make healthcare cheaper, it's like, why do we need so much healthcare? Like, that's the question we should be asking. Why do we need
Seriously, man. I've been saying
like,
for a long time, we're not having a healthcare conversation because we're not talking about the air, the water, the soil, the food, our sedentary lifestyles, and all the other stressors in our lives. And until we start addressing those things, this is not a conversation about healthcare.
Yeah.
No, this is a conversation about health profit. I wanted to add something to you that you said there, Ricky. Like I'm a on the table kind of guy, and I have all these things that pop in. So and this is the first I've heard this phrase over and over again. For some reason, when you said it, I took it to the next level. When you said "eat what you grow, eat what you kill," I followed it up in my head with "do it the right way, and you can stay away from the pills." And that's kind of the bottom line. Is they seem to come at us with these pills, and I'll use again while you were talking. My brain's racing, and my mom got pushed into this situation where they wanted to put her on Prolia, and that put me in a deep dive. And she did this without my knowledge, and they did give her one shot, and I about flipped my lid, and we put a stop to that. But in that space, which is very similar to statins, what they've done with osteoporosis is osteoporosis is when you're losing bone density. And what they've done in this space is very similar to bone density, where everybody is a patient, 100%. You either have osteoporosis, which means you have a loss of your bone density, or you have osteopenia, which is you're not quite there yet, but you're almost there. So now someone who's 0.002% bone loss, you got osteopenia, and we need to put you on this stuff. And so you've got literally 35 to 45-year-old women who are getting the poop scared out of them to get them on medicines, and then eventually these debilitating medicines like Prolia that are tearing people apart. It's part of the reason why I'm sitting here and I'm sure why a lot of us are sitting here, to start these groups, to start the talking, to start the motivation to get us to speak up and let other people know what's going on. When I did a deep dive last year, or I guess the year before at this point, into osteoporosis and started just following some groups and listening. And you can go on Facebook and go search Prolia and look what they've done in this space. For those of you who don't know, I can break this down into the simplest terms. This isn't exactly what's going on in the world of osteoporosis and Prolia, but basically Prolia, for example, think about your bone getting a little bit of a crack in it, right? It's not quite fully the bone density you need, and you get like little divots in your bone. Basically what Prolia is doing is filling those cracks in with like a cement filler. Think about that. And that eventually deteriorates your bones. So you have women who on their 3 or 4 shot of Prolia, and their bones are literally deteriorating. So it's creating a very, very massive issue for a lot of people. And it's under the radar. It's not being covered. No one's talking about it. It's coming up very slowly. And if any of you are in that space and you want to find out about it, I would definitely recommend searching Prolia. And if you know people in your family that are in that world of osteopenia or osteoporosis, stick your head in like I did with my mom, because she had taken 1 shot already. If she would have gotten to the 2nd shot, it's very hard to stop these shots because your body can deteriorate. With 1 shot, you're still able to stop. It's still an uphill battle, and there's still some issues, and it's still one of the greatest faux pas in my family, in my butt, that I wasn't a little bit more proactive on my mother's medicine and stuff. Yeah, I just wanted to say that. So back to you, Ricky. I wanted to say thank you for being on. I looked at your website and checked out some of your blogs or some of your podcasts. You seem like you've been all over the place in this space with, I think, something like 400 episodes. Can you give us a rundown, like maybe like outside food? What are some of the other topics that are top of mind for you where we are currently in this space?
Well, I mean, I definitely talk about geopolitical stuff. I love historical stuff. I mean, it just every rabbit hole you go down, you kind of find out that most of it's been a lie, and there's always been people who go against the grain. In many cases, they've been suppressed or whatnot. I mean, look at Nikolai Tesla. His research taken out of his apartment by the FBI. Who knows where that stuff is? Probably everything's about social control. I mean, you control the information, you control the civilization. I mean, it's so it's like they don't want us to be healthy and powerful and free thinkers, and they want us to just believe whatever narrative they tell us. And they it's trust the experts. And I always say I didn't get brainwashed in school because I didn't pay attention enough to get brainwashed. And I was a foreigner kid, and then I got into metal music, and I just did school was the most got in the way of my learning, the way I looked at it. And so yeah, I mean, so every rabbit hole I could think of, I go down. And if it's like, ancient civilizations, if it's geopolitical stuff, if it's health, nutrition, cancer cures, if it's, whatever you can think about, it's just pondering and exploring everything and anything. I've had people on like Rupert Sheldrake, years ago, talking about dimorphic residence theory. Dr. Tom Cowan was on years ago before, he kind of became more of a household name during the COVID era. And, because I thought his view on health was really interesting. This idea of like, hey, when you have a symptom, it's not something that needs to be treated. It's your body potentially trying to fix itself. So it's like, hey, if I have food poisoning, maybe I'm throwing up because there's something in my body that it's trying to get rid of. It's not because it's something it's not a symptom that needs to be stopped unless you get to the root cause of the issue, which is the bacteria or whatever.
Right. Like American medicine really likes to tamp down these symptoms without addressing the root causes.
Yeah, everything's symptom management. They don't fix anything. If you have diarrhea, they'll give you something for constipation. If you have constipation, they'll give you something for diarrhea. That's how they fix everything. So you never get to the root cause of anything. And that's the problem with things. It's like the Dr. Chris Kresser, he used to say that the modern medicine's like having a rock in your shoe, and instead of the doctor telling you to take off the shoe and get rid of the rock, he gives you a painkiller for the pain. And it's like that's how totally. They handle everything. They don't have enough time. They don't take enough time. And I think times are changing. People are. I mean, we've gotten so sick, and autoimmune disease and autism and allergies. I mean, all these things are absolutely just off the charts that I think people are just finally becoming aware. I mean, these were taboo topics. I mean, bringing up, the potential of vaccines causing any harm was like talking about reptilians. You would get the same look, and it was just one of those things where people just thought you were crazy for even questioning it. And, it's all about trusting the experts. And, one of a few things that came out of COVID that was positive was the fact that people now are questioning the experts. Fauci was a part of the AIDS epidemic. People are learning that. The Dallas Buyers Club was inspired by Dr. Fauci.
Wow.
That movie. And, he was took a cancer drug and repurposed it for AIDS. And they stopped using it in cancer because it was killing people faster than the cancer, AZT.
Wow.
And so people, and that's what the Dallas Buyers Club kind of highlights. And he was a part of that. Dr. Peter Duesberg was a person who pushed back on Dr. Fauci. He was actually on really early on the Rogan podcast, like maybe first couple hundred or a couple thousand episodes he did. He brought up Dr. Fauci on that episode before Dr. Fauci was a household name. And he's like, this guy is basically a politician. He doesn't do any research, but he controls all the funding. So people are afraid to speak out against him. And you go back and listen to that episode, you're like, you're absolutely right. The guy who created the PCR test, Kerry Mullis, he wasn't a fan of Dr. Fauci, and he had a mysterious death at the end of 2010, but he would have been a very outspoken person about this. But, this idea that somebody wears a white robe or, has some PhD and all of a sudden we're supposed to just believe everything they say. I always tell people, like, if something, this is the way the world works, is that it doesn't matter if you're talking about geopolitical issues or if you're talking about history, if you're talking about diet, nutrition, modern medicine, they convince you that if it doesn't make sense to you, it's because you're too dumb to understand it, and you need to just trust the experts. It's not because it doesn't make sense, but the truth is, it's because it doesn't make sense. Like when it was talking about masking, and the 6 feet away from each other. I mean, there's just endless amounts of COVID restrictions that didn't make any sense. This idea of getting a shot to protect other people, even though the shot only protected you allegedly, and it didn't stop you from getting it or spreading it. It's like, wait, that doesn't make sense. Why do people keep repeating that? And people are too quick to just be like, okay, trust the experts.
Yeah, narrative control and social control.
I mean, there's a documentary called The Syndrome that will pull your heartstrings, and it's about shaking baby syndrome. And what happened was that there was these parents that were being locked up because they were taking their kids to the hospital, and they were saying that, hey, the symptoms that your kid has looks like it's shaking baby syndrome, means you shook them too hard, that you end up hurting them, and we're going to take you away from your kids. And so parents over and over again were getting taken away from their kids because of these doctors. And then they had a doctor that was I don't know if he was a doctor or scientist, I don't know what his exact title was, but he was in the research of car accidents. And he's like, somebody asked him for his opinion, and he's like, that doesn't make any sense, because he's like, you would see neck damage if you really were shaking a baby so much. So even though you see some head damage, you would see some neck damage. You can't shake a baby enough to hurt its head and not hurt its neck. So he came to it with a different perspective, went to court and testified and helped these parents expose the fact that shaking baby syndrome was complete horse crap. It wasn't scientific at all. And the experts that were saying it were locking people up and taking people away from their kids, all based on crappy science. And it took somebody from the outside looking in, which is, in many cases, you look at historically, science is a lot of times have been the biggest breakthroughs have been people who aren't experts in that field, maybe somebody who's looking at it from a different light.
Totally.
But it was like, trust the experts, and the experts locked up parents and took them away from their kids, which, as a parent, I couldn't even imagine. Nothing is worse than being innocent and trying to convince everybody that you're innocent, and them thinking you're guilty because some guy in a white robe in court says you are.
Seriously. And it's a pretty common sort of truism, even in science, that paradigms don't change because we learn something new and everybody figures it out and accepts it. You have to wait for the current generation to essentially age out and die off for the paradigm shifting insights to actually take over. And it's a really it's a perverse mechanism when science isn't about concretizing fact, but refining understanding over time. So like even the thing we learned today that seems like a better understanding of reality than what we were currently operating under on a long enough timeline will itself be further refined if we allow it to be. So yeah, the whole like just blindly trust the experts, especially when these experts from institutions, it's so woven into power structures. And at that point, it's intrinsically woven in with incentives beyond just the good of the people. It's really problematic. And it's problematic on both ends, because when we can't trust them, we're liable to question things that maybe we shouldn't. Maybe not question, but some things that we should trust, we can't trust because we can't trust them at all. And that gets really hard. But we do have some hands, and I really want to get to them. Levi, yours was up for a while, man. I'm sorry you had to wait so long. If you still have something, go for it, and then we can get to Yankee and Cheney.
Yeah, I do have 5 minutes before I have to take a call, so I'm wondering if this is a good idea. But I was going to point out the recent updates with the NIH. I think I mentioned to you earlier, but we're all talking about being authentic and challenging the status quo and the lab coats and everything. And over the last few days, there's been a rollout of anti-Semitism laws at the white coat level. So basically, Bhattacharya just passed a thing saying all all federal funds to scientists have to first sign a pledge about Israel.
Yeah,
it's basically a foreign policy thing.
This is so weird.
And this is the thing behind the MAHA movement that's always been a problem. We're losing a lot of people over this because we want to be authentic and say we're challenging the status quo, but then we're saying all the scientists have to agree with a foreign war. if they don't agree with the foreign war, and that says like, oh, bombs, don't send bombs to Israel. Well, that counts as a boycott because it's a big trade deal. So that's a boycott of a trade deal by saying you don't want to send bombs to Israel. So if you don't agree with that, every single scientist in all 50 states can get your money pulled and they can claw it back legally. And on top of that, the HHS is also leading the charge against Harvard. So they have an anti-Semitism task force that goes between a few agencies, but the main ones like leading it and who signed the letter to Harvard was HHS. So HHS is like every student in America has to agree with the foreign war, and every researcher and scientist has to agree with it. And if they don't, there's legal consequences. So
yeah, it's bizarre. It's really strange and seems really problematic. I have no idea what a foreign country and supporting a specific foreign country has to do with us doing work in science and medicine in our country. And of course, there's a lot of theories out there on what's going on with the U.S. government putting its finger on the scales about supporting Israel. Every member of Congress having an APAC handler, that sort of thing. And I don't know what's what. There's a lot of these things. I really don't know what's what. I'm just here to help facilitate good conversations so that we can sort of come together around things that we can form some consensus on and make some changes. But it does feel really problematic to me, and I don't know what to do about it.
Yeah, science should be nonpartisan, and we should try to do honest research. And if your first question to somebody when they're studying a heart attack is whether they agree with Israel,
Right,
that's probably not going to be good science, right? Like this is going to be fraudulent science. So, and then how many smart, intellectual, honest people are going to all fall in line with foreign policy? No, they're going to disagree on Twitter. Guess what? All their students just got fired the next day, and they got all their money clawed back from a 10-year study, and they have to pay back for the last 9 years. So like you cannot step out of line. And so that's unheard of in America. It's unconstitutional on 12 different levels. But even if it's unconstitutional, it will be implemented for the next 4 years because it takes a long time to challenge these things. But these are unheard of in our lifetime. This is the first time in our lifetime this has happened. It's even going beyond Fauci's reach. Fauci did creepy stuff with COVID and all that sort of stuff and hiding the research, which we all know is like a fact now, right? Like this is a proven fact, the labs. And now we're going to see that at every single university in America, thousands of universities will be affected by this policy. And every research and every study from pesticides to healthcare. So and what's the likelihood that if you're pro-war, you're basically going to get funding? So everybody who's in line with the war machine is going to get guaranteed funding.
Because Bobby ran a campaign predicated on peace. He didn't want to be in these wars. One of the reasons that I loved him so much is that he was so predicated on peace, not just externally with other countries, but internally in the vicious division we have in partisanship here. And look, I know you've got to run. If other people want to comment on that topic, I'm more than happy to let that topic play out here now. It kind of deserves its own space, especially if we can find some guests that really understand this without being like raging Nazis. I always get worried about this topic, not because I don't see that there's seriously problematic things in it, because there absolutely are, but who is actually like a big-hearted, grounded, logical person without clear biases, like Ian Carroll. We've been trying to figure out what topic we can have Ian Carroll in as a guest, and this might be a good one. So I'll think about that a little more. But thank you for bringing it up. It is so worthwhile. And it looks like he is gone now. Again, people can comment on that. We can keep talking about it. But in the meantime, let's get to Yankee and then Cheney.
I think it's an absolutely repulsive topic to think that my loyalty to America or that my loyalty to health or to the American people becomes conflated with my support for a foreign nation's war. I think that's detrimental to the mental health of the American society as a whole. And I think it funnels people into being less courageous, more outspoken, to taking advantage of their First Amendment rights. We are a self-governing republic of a free nation, And to think that our own government says, hey, we're not going to fund you if you have students or staff or members that don't support this. And the definition that they use is so encompassing. It even includes talking about the Bible. So I think any conservative, which it's just repugnant upon a free society of critical thinkers, of free thinkers, on liberty upon itself, that, I just don't think that that's a condition. But one of the things that I don't want to get too far into it, because I think that's just something that innately every American should push back on and say, no, you're not going to tell us how to think. But when we were talking about health, and when Ricky was talking about these systems that are in play, I think the consequences that MAHA is having is phenomenal. I think it's outrageous in the greatest ways imaginable, because we're pushing back on a system that was a freight train. And anyone that dared got in front of it, that pushed back against, big pharmaceutical, they got ran over. They got their lives ruined, and sometimes, even worse. So now we're all on the tracks. Every last one of us, we're on the tracks. We're pushing back, and we're uncovering truth and educating people. And we're seeing a shift in the paradigm and in the culture. And the thing that it even changed my life. Like, I own a farm now. I went from the city to rural life. I got chickens. I got cows. I don't got cows yet. We're going to get cows. We're going to get goats. We're going to get rabbits. We're growing our own food. And it's got us looking at like how to make beef tallow. Like, and we do that. We go to the local meat market and we buy fat. We make tallow. We're looking in at insulin resistance, and everyone's searching for an education, and we're seeing values change in real time, where materialism is getting replaced with self-sufficiency. We're seeing square footage being replaced with acreage, and we're seeing a return of values, either conservative or independent, free-thinking society that's not tied to a monopoly of narratives, a monopoly of ideas, a monopoly of medicines and poisons. We're seeing real mental and physical and spiritual liberation on a scale that not even a multi-billion-dollar propaganda campaign can stop. I think that's powerful. And wherever you align to that, whether you think vaccines should be free, whether you think they should be illegal, whether you think that people have the right to choose what you eat, the fact is that there is an education emerging that no expert's going to debunk. No expert, I use that in quotations. No one's going to stop this at this point. We're getting so self-educated that I think health will become a standard of life, not something that we seek. It will become naturally ingrained with every decision that we make. And they're not going to be able to talk their way out of this. I don't think they can buy their way out of this. And I don't think they can sustain the loss and profits that they're going to get as this is going, because this cultural revolution is so much bigger than any one of us. It's so much bigger than the machinations and the control that they have on the markets. And I'm excited for it. I'm all here for it. And I'm happy that everyone else is pushing this, because it's going to change our lives.
Yankee, I pray you're right, man. I'm so thrilled. Like, I'm so on the same page with you at how excited I am in the progress we're making and the conversations we're having, and how it's rising up in the consciousness, and the progress we're making very quickly, at least with Bobby at HHS. And it looks like we're going to get federal policy that increases the baseline quality of our food supply and of our medicine and everything else. And I'm thrilled with it. But whether this is sustainable and whether we can actually push this forward to a point where the baseline understanding is essentially permanently upgraded is actually an open question, because we're drinking from a fire hose here. And I've been finding myself using that phrase a lot. In information warfare, and especially in a data-rich environment like social media that we've been in for the last 5, 10, 15 years now, every moment is a potential hinge point and wedge to muddy the waters, to turn people against each other, to insert a 5% truth, 95% lie. It's very tumultuous. And it's one of the reasons in my activism, in my grassroots work, I focus so much on getting people to build relationships with each other, because our connections to each other cannot be based purely on the information we seem to agree on. We need to connect enough to appreciate each other, to realize we actually like and care about each other, because that's the stuff that makes these interconnections between each other resilient to attempts to put wedges between us. And if we do that successfully, then we are resilient. Then it is harder to break us up. It is harder to drive us apart. And from there, like we've had a couple of disagreements in this space, even just in the last couple of spaces. And thankfully, because of the tone we create here, because of the vibe we set of what this space, the Midday MAHA, is for, we remind each other that we don't have to agree, and that we're all looking for the truth, and that we respect each other, and we can disagree safely. We can disagree and it's respectful, and we know that we actually care to find our way forward together. And it's so important because especially in like text-based social media, it's so easy to be like, hey, I really like that guy. And then one day they make a post and it doesn't sound right to you, and you're like, wait, I don't know if I like that guy. But if you actually make some connections, if you have some conversations, if you have some experiences with them, that one post might not shake you so much. You know what I mean? So I really hope, and I'm so grateful that here we are on episode 15 of the Midday MAHA, and we've got so many people that come back again and again. I'm really getting to like know and love you guys so much. And I hope you've all, there's a link at the top of the space right now for the Midday MAHA community on X, which we plan to use a lot more in the future. And I really hope you guys join it, because it's a place outside of just these 3 times a week conversations where we can really share and get to know each other better, and post information that lives a little bit longer and is easier to refer back to. Because Twitter, X, whatever, is so ephemeral. So the posts, they disappear in a day. The spaces, that was a cool conversation, but then it's gone. But these communities, and God, I hope the tools get better in these communities for us to really organize. But these communities are a really great way for us to have a place to check in and see what we're all talking about, and really connect with each other. So yeah, I really hope you're right in the durability of this movement, and us moving markets and changing policy to make the baseline higher. And I just want to do everything I can to support our work to make sure that actually happens.
I would never, I just want to tap off what you're saying.
Yeah, please go for it.
I would never discount the efforts of one individual person, because one person's fervor, it can ignite another. And I think that movement, that passion, that drive, that's sustainable because it gets inherited, gets passed on to someone else through a conversation. That's not something that you can quell with disinformation or propaganda. Once people really become awake and they become aware, I don't see this ever getting shut down. I see what Ricky was talking about earlier and Billy was talking about, that this is something that's going to become refined and reiterated and improve over time.
Yeah. And I really hope so. One example that I will give is like right now, I'm really trying to dial in my gut health. I'm struggling hard, man. And it's been years. And I'm trying to figure out which way to go. So I'm switched on that I need to do something. I'm switched on that the food companies sell poison and that I don't trust the pharmaceutical industry. And I'm not necessarily going to trust what doctors tell me because they don't know shit about nutrition, generally speaking. And at that point, I still don't know what to do, right? Because like, do I go carnivore? Do I go keto? Do I do a paleo? Do I do the repeat diet? I don't know. And currently, I don't have a clear path to quantifiably determine which way is the right path. It's trial and error, and it's just a lot of noise. So we have to stay patient with ourselves and with each other in this awareness and fervor to align around truth and make things happen. Because for certain situations, especially when it's personal, like your own health, your truth might not be someone else's truth, and both need to be okay to be true for each other, right? But yeah, man, I'm totally with you, and I appreciate the contribution. It's a really good comment, man. Cheney, Ed, then Kim.
Hi. Hi,
Hey,
Ricky.
Cheney, how you doing,
Hi,
dude?
Damo. I'm doing fantastic. One of the things that I have to shout out Ricky for is because a lot of people are like, where did this person come from? Where this person just came out of the blue. Ricky has been saying the same shit like not just about mRNA, not just about foods, not just about the poisons, not just about the fallacies of medical industry. He's been talking about this stuff for years. And so you can listen. I think it's so important sometimes because I think you should look back to people's previous work. So many people fly onto the scene and you don't know who they were, it's almost like I feel like we all saw it happen during the Trump presidency where all of a sudden all these people put a MAGA hat on overnight and you're like, who the F is this? And this person got a whole big grift of putting the MAGA hat on overnight. That's how I feel like a lot, all of Johnny come latelys with, hey, you guys, did you know mRNA is bad? Well, Ricky's been saying it for years and years, and he's been interviewing the doctors. And so it's not just the mRNA, and it's not just your HPV vaccines, and it's not just your baby shaking syndrome. All of this information comes out of your piss poor universities. It's almost a 15-minute city that it's the Rockefeller education system times 10. So sometimes I sit back with information, even the anti-Semitism law, because there's that thing when your enemy's involved in attacking self, sit back and watch. Because I'm like, what's happening here? Am I going to stick up for Harvard, the place that's literally produced all the bad science that we've all been living under? Or am I going to be like, something else is up here? Because Harvard literally and the whole Ivy League system has produced this entire spell of medicine that's been done to all of us, our parents. And that's one of the things, like if you guys haven't ever listened to Ripple Effect, or one of the great, I would say the Union of the Unwanted is the original Spaces. So if you check out that on like YouTube or something, Ricky hosts that, it's a whole bunch of conversations like these. Sometimes they agree, sometimes they don't agree, but like Damo said, we're all trying to get to the better, the good together. So sometimes it feels a little salty, but that's what I like about the Union of the Unwanted. So I just wanted to come up and really big up Ricky, and I'm so glad you're doing this space with him today, Damo and Billy and Desi, and shout out to you guys.
Cheney, thank you so much. And in response to that, huge big ups to Cheney. I didn't know about Ricky. Cheney was the one, Ricky, that brought you up to me in the Club MAHA group chat, because we'd love to get you in on the podcast sometime too, maybe next Wednesday night. And we just followed through from there and hit you up, and you were super gracious to join us in this space today. And I had no idea. And Cheney just added just a little extra depth to my understanding.
Ricky, I would call Ricky, tonight we're going to have on Club MAHA, I think Charles Frohman is going to come in and, just talking to the people in this space. So I'm kind of somewhat of a newbie. I'm not in my own world. So I've been in this space since, 2007 when we had our first child, and then a vaccine injury, a very small one. And then, kind of falling into the space fully by, 2010 to 2012. But I never really did the external work. I really only did it with my family up until COVID, when I got up in 2023 and chased
Which is the most important part. That's step one, right?
Yeah, like chase down working with Mr. Kennedy to make a difference. But in this space, what I've come to realize, like people like Danielle and people like Ricky and Charles Frohman and Jim Moody, these are like lawyers and activists and thinkers, and I'm calling them OGs. And I think this space needs that. We need to give a tribute to the OGs, because what I'm seeing, and I know we're all seeing this. We're all seeing this. Part of the reason why I wanted to get Charles Frohman on, because he's part of the National Health Federation. They've been around since 1955, and there's all these people that have been doing it. And I have to give a huge shout out to Cheney. Like when I listen to Cheney speak, she's now in this very small group of people that I could probably fit on both of my hands that I've met in my life, that tell the stories, say the words, and that are a bit more of a connective tissue that we need. So And I don't say that lightly, Cheney. Like I do not say that lightly. When I hear you speak, I want to hear more of you speak. And I can name these people. The lead singer of the Smithereens, Pat Denizio. He was one of those people. He wasn't as much into the conspiracy, but when he spoke, you would listen. He would tell the story about being in a room with the Rolling Stones, and he would start talking, and 60 minutes later, you knew what was on the wall. You could smell the cigarette. You could smell the drink. The picture was painted in such a way, and I've never been good at that, and I know what I'm good at. And listening to people like Cheney and Ricky speak as they start to say the names, repeat the history. It's the one thing that I'm noticing as one of the newbies that's coming out, is that the new people that are sitting at the table, no offense to them, but we really got to let the OGs have some space here and give the space for them to talk and understand the history, because the present doesn't exist without the breadth of that history.
Man, that's so good, man. I couldn't agree more. And I'll tell you, like, most of my grassroots history is left of center, let's say. And I never considered myself a Democrat or even a liberal or anything like that. It's just that as I was doing all my grassroots work in the places I lived, most of the people that even wanted to engage with that sort of concept, to organize around policy change in a grassroots sense, they were all left of center. And I had no idea, and this might have been a fairly more recent, like 5 or 10 years phenomenon. I didn't know that the right and the center-ish center right was organizing around health, except for like around COVID, when that started happening, and it was like explicitly the vaccine and stuff like that. And I didn't know how to take it. I didn't know what that meant. But like, I was doing hemp activism and drug policy reform, and I worked for Dr. Bronner's for a number of years and got to talk about organic and non-GMO and regenerative agriculture and all this stuff for years, and had no idea anyone on the right was thinking about it, because at least the perception, and I don't know that the perception was true, because I know that we're given so many perceptions that aren't true, was that the right was in the corporates' pockets. And little by little, it started becoming very clear that the Democrats were deeply in the corporate pockets. I mean, I recognized that once candidate Obama became President Obama. But it was still my friends on the left that seemed most interested to organize around this stuff. And now it's interesting because I'm doing this organizing work, and it's almost all my friends right of center. And I'm praying that this is, and to speak to Yankee Doodle's point a little bit ago, the power of this movement, I'm praying this is an opportunity for us to get over our shit and connect with each other over something we clearly agree on, an existential slate of issues that should be non-controversial to human beings, even if we come to it from slightly different perspectives or reasons or sentiments. The underlying issues are the same: our health, our freedom, our God, just all of it, and our lives, and the level of control that corporations have over our government, over our economy, over our media, over our medicine, over our food, all of it, and it just drives me absolutely crazy. And God, I just we had someone that was clearly left of center come into one of these spaces, I think on Friday, and she was obviously a little bit confused, but she hung out with us, and she had her hand raised for a while, but we were having a really good, like, sort of focused guest conversation. And so she had her hand up for a while, and I assured her, like, hey, I'm not ignoring you, we'll get to you in a little bit. And when I finally got to her hand, she was just like, so what kind of a space is this? and I told her, hey, this is about Make America Healthy Again. It's the MAHA movement. It came from Bobby Kennedy and yada yada yada. And she's like, I'm really enjoying it, but like, are you guys all Trump supporters? And I was like, okay, look, probably most, if not everyone here, is supportive of Donald Trump. But I just want you to know that this space is probably different than what you would expect, and maybe even what you would find in most other spaces that have this sort of alignment, because it's really about us finding our way together. I'm trying so hard to make sure this space represents what Bobby represented in his campaign. Like before he joined Donald Trump, he was about healing the political divide. He was about getting the corruption out. And he was about providing a space for all the best ideas and all good people to come together around the best ideas. I don't care what your background is. I don't care what political affiliation you are. And I don't care if you like people I don't like. I care that we care about similar things, and that we're able to speak respectfully and figure them out, you know? Kim, did you still want to go?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. You know, it's time for us to stop with the nonsense and get our butts going. One of the things I wanted to mention was that, you know, I feel like, and I think we've talked about this before, but MAHA is really the key to offering a graceful path back to good. You know, we can tell people that it's not their fault, right? It is, you know, you got tied up in this whole thing, right? And you were sold a bag of goods. And, you know, by incentivizing getting healthy and making it so that it is truly rewarding on so many levels. And then, you know, we have to come together. And then we need to, you know, focus on individual parts, because it is a fire hose, right? So what you guys are focusing on is something different than what American Mission is focusing on, is something different than what, you know, the Punch Bowl is focusing on. But we do need to come together and coordinate as, you know, as a unified American people, right? So, and I think that, you know, whether I was center left or center right at this point, I don't even know anymore. All I know is that, you know, we've been extremely harmed, and we've been lied to. This country has been raped and pillaged of all of its, you know, jewels. Well, they have been at least hidden from us. But there is so much that we have to offer. And the devaluation of the American people is something that I really do admire. Trump has really shown us just how much we were devalued on the world stage. And by him turning that around and being like, wait a minute, no, you guys don't have to apologize. You have been the most generous and forthcoming people of the world has known. And to make it seem like, you know, oh, we've killed everybody in Africa, or we've done this, or we've done that, or, you know, we're responsible for the climate change. And it's like, no, you know, most Americans are good, hardworking people that just want to be left alone. They want to feel good. They want to spend time with their friends and family, and they want to enjoy their life. That's it. And we can't do that with these losers in there. So what we're focusing on is what in the heck is Congress doing? So we are going to be on Congress's ass for the next whatever long, like 18 months that they've got left. And when they come back around this time next year, wanting us to, oh, you know, you got to vote me back in so that I can get Trump's agenda done for 2 years. No, we're not doing that. So we're going to be putting together a lot of different, we're going to call them decentralized events, where you're going to show up at your local, your U.S. representative's local office. So we're going to be coordinating some of that this year, trying, you know, keep people out of trouble, but yet, you know, assemble. We need to assemble to show these guys that, I'm sorry, but you work for us and you better get to work, because he has put forth so many executive orders that are good for us. They're good for the American people. We need to codify those into law.
Totally. I was just about to say, executive orders can be overturned by the next president. In fact, Trump overturned a bunch of the ones that were by Biden. So some of these are really, really cool. And you're right. Congress needs to pass laws to make them the law of the land and not just the whims of the current president in office.
That's right.
Kim, I love the organizing that you just described that you plan on doing. I hope you've connected with Levi. He's the chair of the We the People Party. They're doing great work. I think between you guys and Levi and Billy and our community here and everyone else that Levi is connecting with outside of the community, we can really make a run at these midterm elections.
Yeah, and so I wanted to do one this summer, kind of a like, you guys better get your butts to work. Like, this is crap that's going on here. You're giving us
know that we're watching and we're ready to challenge
exactly
you if you don't earn our vote.
That's right. And so, but I think this summer would be a great time to do it, and that will give us some practice for the midterms.
Yeah,
so,
it's
I
practice.
Think that, yeah,
it's press. It's also, if it can effectively organize around those actions, it grows the network that will carry into the really live and active midterm election cycle. And it starts getting us gathering data on who is working for our vote, who actually is aligned with us.
That's right.
The sooner the better. And this summer's great, but I say anytime we've got a legislative priority happening and we take note of who didn't vote in the direction we felt was appropriate, especially if they try to claim that they align with us, then we should be doing actions at their offices. We should be showing them immediately how we feel and that we are paying attention.
Oh, we're going to be doing that too. So we're going to be putting together call campaigns, and we're going to be watching everything, because at this point they should have at least put forth some good legislation out of everything that Trump has done. And also, where are they on repealing stuff? They need to be taking those laws off the books that are absolutely ridiculous. Like, enough is enough. So we've got to stay on top of them. They need to know that the American people are awake and we are not putting up with their crap anymore.
Totally. That's awesome. I'm so stoked to see what we pull together. And by the way, Ricky, you're our guest man. You can jump in here anytime you want. I'm just sort of going to hands, but please feel free to drop in on anything you find provocative. You've been great so far, and I'm really loving the energy you bring to the space. You got me all fired up today. But
I just wanted to thank Cheney for the kind words.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I love Cheney. She's awesome, and it's awesome to know that she connected some cool people. And I'm happy to be here. And just I guess real quick on a topic that you guys hit on. All these topics have become political, but they don't have to be political, and they shouldn't be political. And when I started my podcast, years ago, it was a lot of people from the left, a lot of like concerned moms that were talking about GMOs and pesticides and all that stuff. Those were the real vocal and people who were putting out documentaries and articles and protesting and whatnot. And then many of us, like, our worldviews and the things that we're passionate about haven't really changed. And just the people who also support those issues have changed slightly. But yeah, I'm always against when people put these topics in a box. We saw it during COVID, where it's like, wearing a mask became, the equivalent of a Trump hat. And, and it was just like, it was more about a political statement than it was thinking that you wanted to wear a mask because you thought it worked. And yeah, I mean, we should all be on the same team in regards to these issues, because it's not, I know the left likes to blame corporations for all the issues. The right likes to blame government for all the issues. They're both in bed together. They both have a hand in this. It's the FDA and Big Pharma and Big Food. They're all helping each other out. It's a revolving door. People will go from VP of Pfizer to working in politics to working in politics to becoming a lobbyist for pharma. So it's not two separate issues. It's all one issue.
Well, if Congress is doing their job, then none of this is political, right? It shouldn't be political, but because they have been, just completely inept for so long, and arrogant and full of themselves and blackmailed and everything else that they are, that's why, we've got to get in here and go, how about you stop poisoning us? How about you put some, fix your little legislation there and take that out, because you're violating our rights, right? So that's why everything has become so political, because Congress, and freaking, that is hands down, if they did their job, we would not have these issues.
Yeah, right. And it's the partisanship itself that these parties become organizations, and those organizations have agendas separate from the general welfare. They need ways of raising money. It's a very convenient way for the money on top of both of these parties to drive wedges between the people, to keep us separate and to keep us fighting over shit. Like one party will propose something and that party will love it, and then if the next cycle the other party's promoting, and all of a sudden the first party hates it, and it's fucking asinine, and super dangerous. So I really hate party politics in general, and I've been an independent voter for 20 years because I just see the destructiveness of the current party apparatus that we have. And like some of our founding fathers called this out, right? That if we end up ruled by two parties, let alone by banks, which they also called out, then we're kind of screwed. They're gonna take our democracy from us. And they're going to be able to manipulate us into working against our own best interests. And it's super unfortunate to see. But yeah, let's go to Destiny and then Cheney. Des, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Destiny.
First off, I just want to say I love everybody in here. Bottom of my heart, you guys are awesome. It actually kind of felt like I was exhaling when I started listening to this conversation. I don't know, but I've been like uptight lately. It's been a physical, mental, and emotional like uptightness lately. I think it has a lot to do with like the sun and its crazy activities lately, on top of just the general stress of like the politics on X and everything. But, you know, and being frustrated as a MAHA that the things that we want aren't happening. Of course, you know, I feel like a kid when my mom would tell me, well, you know, you can't always get what you want. Well, as an adult, it's much harder to deal with that feeling. So I really love hearing everyone having these great ideas of some solutions moving forward. It's just like I felt like I could breathe for a second, which thank you guys. I did want to say there's going to be a space tonight that I get the opportunity to talk to Dr. Malone, which is so exciting for me.
Is this Augustus's space?
Yes.
Sweet.
He's asked me to co-host, which is like, I can't even get into the spiritual blessing that God has given me for this moment that's coming up, but and I don't want to spoil it, but like, it's going to be it's meaningful for me. Getting down to the root of what caused COVID and any like solid details I can get that I haven't already looked everywhere for is like very exciting for me. And because I feel sometimes like I'm getting closer and closer, and every time I post some information, there's like one person out there who's like, okay, thank you. This helped me understand this. And all I'm at now is I have very few questions left about COVID before I figure this all out. But the frustrating thing I have is feeling like that no matter what, like as a researcher, not just as an activist, but as a researcher, it's been a frustrating ride because everything that I want to do is help people. And I see the suffering physically in the country from the poison in the food, in the skies, in the water. And I see it all around me. I know all of us do. And because we're like, you know, MAHA spirited, it's that just dire want to fix things, like the dire want. And like when we all have the know-how and the solutions, like in this little room right here, we have so many great, you know, solutions for the problems. It's just a matter of like getting that connected with the people who are supposed to carry out our will. And, you know, I just hate that feeling of hopelessness. So like when I came in and I heard everyone speaking, it really like calmed me down, which I needed because tonight's going to be a big space. And there's going to be a lot of research I'm putting out soon, but it's going to be complex. But I want everyone to know I'm not trying to make it complex. I'm trying to make it easy to understand. But somebody said it earlier, I think it was you, Damo, the revolving door of where they work in government and then they work in pharmacy and they work that. It's so, let me tell, I swear, it is so much worse than you could possibly imagine.
Were they taking double paychecks?
Oh, goodness. Double, sometimes triple. Like, you know, they talk about how much Fauci was making while he was in office. You know, there were quite a number of very concerned people in other positions and companies that were also getting paid roughly, you know, within like $80,000 similar, like $368,000 a year, some of these people, and they were getting paid 300% higher than other people in their position. And they're the ones that contributed to the gain of function legislation. And it's just like, you see it when the more you look at it, it's just so much worse. And I've only really figured how bad it is the last month or two, which is why I haven't put out any big threads, because it's like pulling, not to be punny, a thread on a sweater, and it just keeps going and going and going. And I see how much we've not only been swindled by the media, swindled by Big Pharma, swindled by politics, but we're swindled by the system, just the way that it operates. Just the way it operates. It swindles us on it, like just on its own, autonomously. And it has to change, because if it doesn't, that's the root of the problem, is the money and the greed that is pushing these people to make decisions not in our interest. And until that gets addressed, I don't see where this is ever going to get fixed, which is why I love Doge and the idea of cutting out unnecessary spending. But I would love to see if they could direct that towards the NSF, the USDA, FDA, HHS, BARDA, CBRN, JPEO, all of the medical everything. They need to really go through there, instead of cutting necessarily programs, cut these conflicts of interest out, because they're so bad that Gustav Perna, who led the army for Operation Warp Speed, put $800 million of our money into a company that only been around for 4 months, only to a year later quit his position at Operation Warp Speed to join the board of that company. Now, that shouldn't even be legal.
It shouldn't be legal,
right? Like, how does that?
It's probably not.
I did a huge thread on it, and like, I don't know, almost a year ago now, and it's not even like I'm exaggerating in the slide. Like, you could just on contracts that he authorized in May of 2020, by June of 2021, he's on the board for that company he gave $800 million to. Like, it's insanity. And that's not the only, I could literally list it for everybody involved in COVID 3 ways from Sunday. They were definitely getting double paid, triple paid. They were getting paid when they were on the boards for companies for being a consultant to their own company, or often for research papers and consulting for papers that backed their own research, just to get the approvals. And the people on the approval board are the same people that are in the process for the childhood vaccines. They're the same people that are in. It's mind-numbing, and it's institutionalized at this point. And I didn't realize it was as bad.
and it has been for a long time, actually. In fact, I learned about this revolving door from the movie The Big Short, which was created around the financial crash in 2008, where we learned just how deep the corruption and the incompetence goes, the reckless behavior. And just a whole plot point in it is that there's this revolving door between the regulatory agencies like the SEC and companies like JP Morgan and Citigroup and all these giant hedge fund bastards.
I think it's time to do another garbage fail, but COVID edition, and bring out all these people and make NFTs on them, on the artwork. And
dude,
that's
let's
how we
go.
teach people
I already
about
have
it.
cutouts of like all of them for my mind maps, like their bodies.
Yeah, so I think we need to work on like making some artwork.
Yeah, I mean, let's be creative. Let's have fun. Let's have fun with it.
And we can have like a little like a bio, like, you know how the baseball cards, they have like their stats on the back.
Totally.
We can totally put their, all of their data.
Their salaries and what team they got traded to.
I
and
have like all
sort of
that.
stuff.
You just need to like cut it up and make it cute. But like I have,
Dude, that sounds
I do
so
like
fun.
files on every person. Like if I see your name twice in 2 places on the same thing, I'm like, okay, you go in the book.
So what we need is we need to get one of these communities that's like big into doing the AI generated art, and then give them the mind map and they can create it. So like, again,
Wouldn't even be that hard.
Goes to the
Take some
fire
work,
hose,
but
right?
wouldn't be that hard. Yeah.
But being able to split it off and to give it to somebody and just have them working on that while other people are worrying about other things, right?
You're
Totally.
just talking about meme magic, but we don't have to derail the entire space and start talking about
magic.
I mean, we could do a whole space on meme magic as like grassroots tactics. And Cheney, I would want you to be our special guest for that topic. Let's talk about that later.
Okay, art history is the oldest history, just so people know. Like,
Awesome.
that's a fact.
You know, and hey, by the way, Destiny, I do not take lightly, and I'm so grateful for your words about how when you got into this space, it really like calmed you down, that it's a better vibe. I know I've already said it a bunch of times, even just in this space, but we're really going for that. Like, it's not just about feeling safe to discuss and disagree and stuff. The vibe on social media is so tense. It's so angry that so many people are like building their accounts on like clout chasing and shit talking and tension baiting and all that. I'm not about it. I'm so not about it. Nothing I have ever done that was worthwhile was predicated on any of those things. It was about making friends, finding our tribe, giving a shit about each other and a topic, and then just sticking to it. And every time those things were in place, we would find that we had the perspectives, the skill sets, and the conviction and the stick-to-itiveness to make good things happen. So I'm so glad, especially from someone like you, to recognize that here. It feels really good. It's super nourishing to me. And this is not a heavy-handed pitch for anyone here, but if you want to support this space, if you want to support the Midday MAHA and empower us to do even more and even more concrete work around this container we've created, you can contribute directly to me at Cash App at Boldly Grow. You can contribute to our Patreon at patreon.com/Club MAHA. I also have a Venmo at Damos, capital DAMOOO, 3 O's. It actually doesn't take much to keep me with a roof over my head and the lights on and food on my table, but I don't have it currently and I'm getting a little worried about it. But I will keep doing this regardless because this matters too much and it's just right in my lane. I care about this stuff too much. I'm enjoying you people so much that I'm not going to stop doing it, but I am getting to the point where I don't know what I'm going to do about, eating and rent. But anyway, let's keep moving. We've got Ed and then we have Cheney and we have about 15 minutes left.
Yeah, one of the quick comments I've thought about was the NASCAR jackets. If all the people in Congress we used AI to put one of those NASCAR jackets with all their sponsors, that would be interesting.
That's an NFT series in and of itself, right?
That's a fake idea right there.
Right.
Yeah. The Congressional Graft
I want to
League.
go back to a little history because I'm an old guy. I had my teenage years in the 60s and 70s. And of course, back then, I was into agriculture, the early part of organic and back to the land movement and all that sort of thing. And peace and love, we thought, what a concept. Vietnam War, another ridiculous war. It was all manipulation. We got to fight the communists, all that kind of thing. And so we had this piece of love. We got into the agriculture part, organic, the music. Woodstock wasn't sponsored by Budweiser or Bank of America or anything like that. And like in agriculture, we thought, wow, this is really working. Peace and love was working. Music was wonderful. This is going to catch on. Boy, were we, and of course we had, JFK, RFK, Martin Luther King. We thought everything was going good. All of a sudden, they all got murdered. Outdoor concerts became indoors with disco and cocaine. Back to fight, fear. It's all about fighting and fear. I mean, nowadays, gotta fight. It's because we're all in fear. Agriculture is back to wake up in the morning. What do I got to kill today? Back then, we had Rachel Carson, Silent Spring, the waking up about all the DDT spraying that was all going on. All these things, all of us, and of course back then it was the Democrats or the liberals, the JFKs, the RFKs, the Martin Luther Kings that weren't corporate captured. It was the Republicans that were more into the war and the corporate capture. But then that changed about 1980 is when all of a sudden the duopoly, as RFK was Jr. was always talking about, started to form. So we had to become more in the independent vein of things. But, you know, we learned a lot about how, you know, the concept of peace and love and healthy food. And of course, it's all about sick care now. You know, it's not about health, it's about sick care. And it's still about war, just like you talked about earlier. So, but I do have hope because I know when young people listen to the music of that we had in the 60s and 70s, they're inspired again. They like the harmonies, they like the messages, they like the
And hey, we got
diversity
blue
of
jeans
our
out of
music
it,
back
so
then.
that's cool.
Yeah, you still hang in with the blue jeans. I even have seen bell bottoms, fishnets, all those things have come back at times. So
Yeah, it's funny how we got a bunch
long
of like
hair.
the surface level cultural touch points, but lost the deeper ethos that seemed like it was trying to rise up. I noticed, and I was waiting for it. Cheney posted in the bubble, Woodstock was funded by the CIA. There's a lot of information apparently suggesting that a lot of the hippie movement and a lot of the LSD movement and all that stuff was actually sort of government funded mind manipulation, which is interesting because, like, for instance, me, I was born in '82. And I discovered psychedelics in the 90s, and they were wildly empowering for me to open up my mind and expand my consciousness and deepen my connection to God even. So it's wild for me to hear. And of course I found out about MK Ultra and all that other
Yeah,
stuff.
that I would strongly not believe that because we were so grassroots. People can't even understand how grassroots we were. I mean, nobody was paying attention to us. That's why I said concerts like Woodstock, music that we had, wasn't sponsored by nobody. You know, I mean, we did outdoor venues. You know, it was all.
Well, not just outdoor
There
venues,
was
right?
no
Because
connection
these
to.
days,
There was
outdoor
nothing.
venues, you're talking about like Live Nation, but it was on a farm. It was just a farm.
I had one back on my farm, you know, that's what we did. There was no sponsors of anything. Music wasn't, you know, that early rock and roll and folk and all that wasn't, it was rejected by mainstream pretty much. It was a lot of college radio stations. It's pretty independent all the way around. There was no corporation of any of
Yeah,
it. It was all handmade. We patched our jeans, you know.
it's interesting to me, Ed, because the more powerful a movement like that gets, the more likely the powers that be are going to try to find some way to sort of weasel their way in and manipulate it. So, like on a community level, for you and your friends, and I'm not speaking like from some sense that I know for sure anything because I wasn't there, at least not that I know of. But that on some level, at some level of that movement, because I'm sure there were sort of layers to that movement too. You had your very local, and then your regional, and then some folks like Timothy Leary and whatnot that were like national figures seen as leaders of the movement. Somewhere in there were powers that be trying to find their leverage points to manipulate what was happening. And it's not necessarily going to be through corporate sponsorships, but I don't know, like various ways.
Even then, any of the people that you now know as more famous in that movement, they weren't recognized by national media back then. There was no coverage of any of it of national media. I mean, a little bit of the Beatles, but that was
I'm not
about
necessarily
it.
talking about it being recognized by the national. Sometimes the manipulation of movements isn't outward facing, but inward facing. How can they get their hooks in to manipulate what the people in the movement are thinking or doing, or their ability to effectively organize, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, we were pretty under the
I believe
radar.
it. I believe it. Like at
We're
minimum,
very under the radar. Of
with you
course,
and
see,
your
you didn't have
people.
the internet or anything. So, you know, they couldn't keep up with it. They didn't know where we were, what we were doing.
Yeah, of
you
course they know. They
'cause
know
there
where,
was
where we
no,
are and what we're doing now.
a long distance phone call was almost impossible. You couldn't afford to talk for more than 10 minutes with anybody more than about 10 miles away from you.
Yeah.
So all these things are hard for anybody that lives, you know, that's 20, 30 years old. All those concepts are just, I can understand, extremely hard for you to understand
For
what
sure,
life
man.
was
Yeah,
like
yeah.
back
I mean,
then.
I got the first part of the '80s, and it did seem like a magical time. I enjoyed it for being a kid in it. I've often lamented not being around for the '60s and '70s, though honestly, I might not have made it through. Uh, for having too much fun and being a little too excited about what was going on. I'm actually really curious what a resurgence of those values looks like going forward in a world where we're not so separate and it is real time, nonstop, 24/7 global communication. Is there a version of that sort of counterculture? And you can probably point to things that are happening right now and just say, yeah, dude, obviously it's 4chan or whatever. I don't know. But there might be ways in which that's expressing itself now. But where's the real freedom? Where's the real sense of openness and wonder and wild optimism for who even knows what's coming next? But I'm so excited because there's enough of us together in it that it doesn't matter what anyone else does. I want it so bad. I want it so bad. And things are changing so fast that I just have no idea what it looks like.
Well, spaces is a little piece of
I think
that.
so. I mean, just having conversations like this really is an important piece of it, man.
And then the next thing is, you can learn about it and do it again. I mean, find somebody with a field, find some local people that play music,
Well, I'll tell
and
you,
get together and just enjoy it.
So I'll share.
It's not hard.
I'll share real quick because from about like 2006 to about 2013 or 15, I was pretty heavily involved in the music festival circuit, and they're wonderful. I love them so much. Some of the best times of my life by far, and I think those were, at least at that time, the best example of what it felt like to be in the 60s and sort of like the hippie scene. Just people just rolling out into the country. I would go to my annual festival in West Virginia called All Good, and a number of other ones, and they were so fun and so sweet and so loving and so open and so freedom oriented. It felt like just stepping out of society entirely for a weekend is the best. And then I got more into sort of like the almost like yoga hippie side with like the transformational festival movement and the yoga festival movement. And there was a lot of intention behind how we can build like eco villages, like the idea that you could actually build an eco village to host a festival, and when the festival was over, you still have an eco village. And what people found was it's a lot easier to throw an event than to live together. Especially when you're living together, having to figure out how you're going to grow your own food and live according to your agreed upon values, because you find out that all your personal shit is still your personal shit. You got to figure that stuff out too. It doesn't matter how shanti woo woo you are about things. Personal disagreements and things like that still come up and get in the way of healthy community relationships. And we don't have a lot of experience with that in most of our American lives, growing up in the suburbs or urban environments and things like that. Ironically, you're more likely to have those experiences if you grew up in the country or on a farm. But those folks, for the most part, aren't participating in the transformational music scene. So it's just one more great example of how this like wedge there is between people in this country, where if we brought together a diversity of perspectives and experiences and beliefs and opinions in a respectful and loving environment, we would finally have, I think, everything we need to figure out what the next thing looks like. Yeah. Anyway, we've got like 5 minutes left. Des, what's up?
Oh, it's kind of off topic, but it's what you were just speaking
Yeah,
about
cool.
with
Go for it.
the festivals. I was a festival kid growing up too, and like I'm curious which ones you into because my godparents, they owned an international one. They still own it, but they just kind of sat back from running it now. But it's called Earth Dance. The hub event in the United States, I think, is still in California, Northern California. Well, actually, it should be closer to Central California, but I've gone to so many, and that's the one thing I did it every summer for high school. It was like the best job to have. It was like a festival carny, like the Oregon Country Fair. I worked there a couple summers, which was like the best. Hemp Fest, Harmony Fest, like all these great fairy worlds, like all these wonderful places that I would work during the summer. And the one thing that kept me coming back, it wasn't like the drugs and the cool music, although that's awesome. But what was really the best part was the fact you could just walk around with like 10,000 people being their most authentic self and knowing nothing about anyone else there other than that you agreed you want to have a peaceful, good time. And like that is the vibe like I want to bring to like everything. Like I want that everywhere to just like sit down. Sometimes you're talking to like a CEO of an organic coconut company, right? And they're just like talking to you about these crazy things that they did in Milan and then talking about regenerative agriculture the next minute. And then you're bartering your sandals for, you know, some cool shirts or something. It's just like this weird, amazing, like how humans are supposed to be. And I'm so glad to hear other people had that experience growing up where they got to go through this, you know, it's a unique thing. And if you ever get a chance and you have kids, take them to some cool hippie peace festivals. Do it over summer. You'll love it. They'll love it. And you get to learn like about community and what true connection is with people. And, you know, it's just like, I'm so glad to hear you're part of that scene. That's awesome.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it, and I'm not really done with it. I just haven't had the opportunity lately, especially since COVID. But I went to All Good a bunch. I went to Electric Forest. I did Envision once in Costa Rica. That was a fun and wild experience. Been to a hand.
Forest. That's amazing.
Oh, it's an incredible festival. I went to the Oregon Eclipse Gathering, which was I think a symbiosis festival. That was incredible. Yeah, that was amazing. But yeah. No, I almost wonder what it would look like to combine a music festival with a county fair or like a country fair. You know, something that would really draw in kids, like the youth, while incorporating a lot of these more like, okay, but how are we going to live practically healthy, but not feel like we're trying to go entirely back to being Luddites, right? Because we do have technology, and some of this technology is incredible and very impactful and important. But how do we weave it into lives where we still get our feet in the grass and eat things that we actually know where it came from and what it's made of, and enjoying mind-altering music.
That's a great to bring back. I grew up with the county fairs doing my agriculture stuff, and they were incredible back years ago, and they really fallen out of fashion recently. And I think that's such a miss, especially with regenerative food, and people are so into that now that, you know, the carny part isn't as important, but the music, having real food, having farmers bring in and show what they grow and talk to people, having, you know, the original county fairs, one of the big things were they had the exhibit hall, but they would cook meals. And so I can remember stories from way back, like during the Depression and the Second World War, when you couldn't get much good food. There were food stamps, literally, that you could only buy so much meat a week, and often it was only bologna and stuff during the wars. And one of the outlets that they had was the county fairs were able to bring in food from the farms, and it was a great event because people that hadn't had a real meal in a whole year would travel for miles to go to a county fair to have, you know, real food again for one meal of the year. So I just think that's, and the fairgrounds still exist. A lot of those are struggling. And I think if young people really got in there, and I think they'd be a great opportunity. And it's a great venue too, to keep up throughout the year, to do lots of things at.
And
So I love that idea. To hear young people talking about that warms my heart, makes the whole day worth it.
man. And it's so sad to see that nowadays, instead of getting that real meal that came from the farms, the county fair, you're getting freaking deep fried butter. It's like, what are we doing? What are we doing, man? I don't care about funnel cake. I really don't. Anyway, we're gonna need to cut it off here in just a few minutes. But Des, what you got, girl?
No, it's just a 40-second edition, I promise.
Sure, no worries.
Like the idea of bringing them back. If you guys remember, Trump, when he was inaugurated, said that they were going to do the year of the United States expo, essentially, where we'd have all these state fairs for do you remember him saying that? I was like, maybe we could integrate that in there, so I'm thinking.
Yeah, next year, right? It's the 250th anniversary of the United States. And he's going to do some huge, amazing fair in Ohio or Iowa or something. I'm not sure, but I really do love this idea, and I have no idea if it'll actually attract other young people. I don't know, but if we do it right, I do think it will, and it'd be really cool to see, because I think it would attract enough people regardless of age. And I love things that can attract a diverse age group. We really need to mingle again with people that are older than us and younger than us, because the perspective, God, the learning that we can get, and the learning we can give. Because even if you're only 16, you can be teaching a lot of things to kids that are 8, 10, 12. I think that was actually a big part of how we grew robustly back before, explicitly having age brackets for our learning environments. Anyway, I'm going to give the last question or comment or little stoke for a mini conversation here to Millie. Millie, thanks for joining us today. How you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, I think that what you guys are talking about sounds like something that would be awesome. I definitely like the idea of some kind of MAHA themed festival. I mean, you could have all these there's a lot of companies out there that offer little niche health, products or supplements or things for people's health, or people that might make natural honey, or just all kinds of different things. I think that you could have people with booths, and you could have good music, and you could have speakers that are people like Barbara O'Neill, or I don't know, RFK Jr. if you're connected enough to pull him in. But if you pulled a bunch of people who could speak and share knowledge and information, as well as people having music, having a good time, and being able to learn about and find new products and stuff, I think that would be something that would be really fun to do. And I think that it would be a good way to meet like-minded people. So I think you guys are onto something.
Hell yeah. Thanks for that. Really appreciate it. We are going to cut it right around here. I hope everyone can come back on Friday. We're going to have, I think we're having Matt Cormier from Health Uncensored, and going to be talking about the links between vaccines and autism. Obviously a super, super important topic, something that I believe most people here are very interested in. And it'll be great to have a proper expert in here about it. We do these every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 2 p.m. Midday MAHA. Please join our X community. The link is at the top of the chat. Please contribute if you can. I know things are tough these days, but if you can contribute even a few bucks, Cash App Boldly Grow, Venmo at Damo with 3 O's, or patreon.com/Club MAHA. It goes a long way to helping me keep doing this stuff, and focusing deeply on doing it more and doing it better. And yeah, America Mission. Let's have a last word, and then we'll close out.
Oh, last word. Thanks. I just want to encourage people to check the purple pill. Put 3 CTAs in there. No immunity for Big Pesticide is one. No immunity for Big Pharm is another. Help kill the real ID before May 7th. There's number 3. And also, I did include links to how to find your legislator. And then Kim created a contact list for your senator, one for your senator and one for the House reps, which also includes their ID, their account. So you could actually create some posts and tag at them. So I just want to call that out. Just check the purple bell, please.
Yeah,
Thank
and you know
you.
what? That's a good shout. Always check the purple pill in the Midday Maha, because between America Mission and Kristina, our co-host, and a bunch of other folks, there's always so many links in the purple pill on this chat, and it's almost always really interesting and worthwhile stuff. And please, 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 if you're just hanging out here listening and you want to hear us talk about something else, if you want to hear us dive further into a topic, if you have thoughts but you don't want to get up and speak, if you have resources, share them. Please share them, because that's what we're here to do. Share them in the purple pill, share them in the Midday Maha X community. Tag me, tag anybody, just share, because we got to learn from each other. Anyway, this was super fun. Ricky, thanks again, man. You really injected this whole space today with a ton of energy and some great information. I'm just really grateful to meet you, buddy. Glad to be connected. Hope we can talk again sometime. And if you ever find yourself on the warpath about a specific topic and you're just trying to go around getting the word out, let me know. You are super welcome back anytime. And thank you all so much. Hopefully I'll see you Friday.
All right, so I talked about this on live, but I got to put it out in a video. So let me tell you what the Republicans are about to play a fucking game with you for the next 2 years until the midterms. So everything Donald Trump has done so far has been through executive order. Congress, who actually writes the laws, writes the legislation, and passes them, hasn't done a fucking thing. Now, they've distracted you with like congressional investigation and congressional hearings. But what they could have done during this whole fucking time was take each of those executive orders and make them legislation. They could have made them law. And they haven't done that for a single fucking thing. They haven't actually done a damn thing since they've been elected to Congress. Now, when this is going to be very loud is running up to the midterms. What they're going to tell you is, hey, we're the Republicans and we support Trump. But if you want Trump's agenda to continue, you need to reelect us in the midterms so we can make everything he's done law. They could do that right now. They could take everything Trump has done and make it law right now. But they're not going to. They're going to pause until the midterms, and then they're going to campaign on everything he's done and how they can make it legislation, about how they can make it law. They could do it right fucking now, and they are choosing not to. And if they continue with this path, I hope you vote Democrat. I hope you elect Democrats that overrule them and stop them from doing a goddamn thing, because that is the way the government normally works. And we didn't elect Trump to do things the way government normally fucking works. So Josh Hawley, all these other motherfuckers in Congress who haven't done a fucking thing, fuck you. No, you have the power right now. You have a majority in the House. You have a majority in the Senate. So there is no excuse to not take what Trump has done that the American people love and make it legislation. And when you come to the midterms and you go, we're going to make all of this law, we're going to make all of the legislation, we're going to enshrine it in the Constitution, shut the fuck up. You could do it right fucking now. And you're choosing not to. And I hope every fucking one of you loses your job. I hope every one of you is voted out and we get to see that it's just business as usual in Congress, because every fucking one of you is bought and paid for by your special interests. You don't care about the American people. You don't care about making our lives better. You care about making sure that your special interests pay you enough money to make sure you retire comfortably and get to buy a fucking island somewhere. Because let me tell you right now, I support what Trump is doing, but I would tell Congress to go fuck themselves, because they are not doing what's best for the American people. They are doing what's best to get reelected. And that makes me hate each and every fucking one of them. So when they come about a year and a half from now and go, hey, everything Trump has done is just an executive order, we could make it law if you just reelect us and give us time to do our thing. I want you to remember that they could have done it right fucking now. And they chose not to, because they want to keep their jobs more than they want to help the American people.